Donald John Trump, the President of the United States, and to a historic degree. Look at this. Blame for the increase in gas prices. 77% say Donald Trump. I looked back at every president that I could find on a similar question, which is when the gas prices rise, who gets the blame? Trump gets the blame more than Joe Biden did back in 2022, more than Barack Obama did in 2012, and more than George W. Bush did back in 2005, 71%. Donald Trump takes the cake. He owns this mess, according to the American people, and it is quite the mess because as gas prices climb ever higher and the increase in the percentage that blame Donald Trump climb ever higher, his approval ratings go down into the basement.
So presidents always get blamed, but he's getting blamed more.
He is getting blamed more to a historic degree.
What about the partisan breakdown here?
Now, this is where it gets really stunning. Okay, we've seen numbers that are this bad for Trump, disapproval rating on gas prices around this area, the percentage blaming him for the increase in gas prices around this area. But when you break it down by party, this is where it gets, oh my. This is a Republican base that has been infatuated with Donald Trump for years. But even here, blame Trump for rising gas prices. 55%, a majority of Republicans blame Donald Trump for gas prices. That is the highest ever blame for gas prices from one's own party. Then you see 82% of independents. That's the highest percentage who blame the President of the United States among independents. Not much of a surprise, 95% of Democrats. But majority. Rarely do you get the trifecta of majority from across the political spectrum agreeing on something, but here we have it. The majority of Republicans, independents, and Democrats.
77% of Americans blame Donald Trump for rising gas prices. More than blamed Biden, more than blamed Obama, more than blamed Bush, the highest in modern political history. And that number sitting right next to it, 55%, that is the one that should terrify the Republican Party. 55% of Republicans, Trump's own base, blame him for the gas prices, the highest ever recorded from inside a president's own party. Not a fringe, not a minority, a majority. The trifecta that CNN's chief data analyst Harry Enton said he has never seen before. Majority of Republicans, majority of independents, majority of Democrats, all blaming the same president for the same problem. Gas is $4.39 a gallon, up 33 cents in 1 week. And the Kalshi prediction market, where real money is on the line, gives a 74% chance it hits $5 before the end of this year. On April 17th, that number was 30%. It has more than doubled in 2 weeks.
It says it's all worth it. It's worth it to fight this war in Iran. What do the American people say?
Yeah, okay. Last night as well, Rick Scott, the senator from the great state of Florida, said the same thing. It was worth it for him, despite the fact that we had the higher gas prices. But do the American people agree? They don't agree with the President of the United States, and they don't agree with the senator from the state of Florida. Look at this. Is the Iran war worth higher gas prices? 64% of Americans say no. Just a third say yes. These are types of numbers we see consistently with this war over and over and over again. We're not just getting little majorities. We are getting vast majorities agreeing on something, and here we have the vast majority say no, the Iran war is not worth higher gas prices. As I said, it is a mess, and is a mess in the minds of the American people, of the president's own.
And 64% of Americans say the Iran war, the war that caused all of this, is not worth it. Not a close number, not a split. 2/3 of the country, not worth it. Now, if all of that was the only story this week, if the gas prices and the polls and the broken promise were the only things happening, that would already be one of the worst weeks of Trump's second term. But it is not the only thing happening, because this week something else dropped, something that puts all of it, the gas prices, the polls, the broken promises, the crackdown on the media, into a global context that is deeply alarming.
We're number one. America first. Let's go. Let's go. No, actually, we're number 64. 64. The World Press Freedom Index just released and graded the United States as 64th in the world for freedom, the lowest our country has ever ranked. I should also remind you that we've been downgraded from a full democracy to a flawed democracy on the Global State Democracy Report, falling to 28th in the world as of 2026. So all of our peer nations are more free and more democratic than us. And to be clear, this decline started in 2016. Before 2016, our country has always scored above 90 out of 100 in the freedom and democracy metrics. But now we sit at 81 out of 100, and we are on a downward spiral. So way to go, America. Under Donald Trump, we are legitimately and destructively a nation in decline.
Number 64 out of 180 countries, the United States of America, the country that has called itself the leader of the free world for nearly a century, ranked 64th for press freedom in 2026. That is the lowest score in American history, and it dropped 7 places in a single year under one president, under Donald Trump. The organization behind that ranking is Reporters Without Borders, known internationally by its French acronym RSF. They have been publishing the World Press Freedom Index every year for 25 years. 180 countries ranked, scored, analyzed on 5 specific indicators: the political environment for journalism, the legal framework, the economic conditions, the socio-cultural context, and the physical safety of journalists. And what they published this week is not just alarming for America, it is the worst report in the history of the index for the entire world. For the first time in 25 years, for the first time ever, more than half of all countries on Earth fall into the difficult or very serious categories for press freedom. The average score for all 180 countries has never been lower. In 2002, when the index started, 20% of the world's population lived in a country where press freedom was rated good. Today, that number is less than 1%. Less than 1% of the world's population lives in a country where press freedom is good. Read that again. In 2002, 1 in 5 people on Earth lived in a country where the press was genuinely free. Today, it is essentially nobody. The world has gotten dramatically less free in 25 years. And the United States, once the beacon of that freedom, is ranked 64th and labeled problematic, not satisfactory, not good, problematic. Let's talk about who is above us, because this is where it gets genuinely embarrassing for a country that calls itself the greatest democracy on Earth. Norway is number 1 for the 10th consecutive year. The Netherlands is number 2, Estonia is number 3, Finland is number 4, Denmark is number 5, Sweden is number 6, Germany is number 9, Switzerland is number 10, the United Kingdom is in the top 30, France is 25th, Portugal is 21st, New Zealand is 14th, Canada is 18th. Every major Western democracy that America has historically called its closest ally, countries that American presidents have stood next to at NATO summits and G7 meetings and told the world represent shared values of freedom and democracy, every single one of those countries is ranked above the United States on press freedom. And then look further down the list. The United States is ranked below Timor-Leste, below Suriname, below Jamaica, below Trinidad and Tobago, below Namibia, below Cape Verde. The United States of America ranked 64th below Cape Verde. And RSF was explicit and specific about exactly why America fell. They did not use vague language. They named names. They cited specific actions. They documented a pattern. Their executive director for North America, Clayton Weimers, issued an official statement. He said the U.S. has experienced a steady decline in the RSF index over the past decade, but President Trump is pouring gasoline on the fire. Trump and his administration have carried out a coordinated war on press freedom since the day he took office, and we will live with the consequences for years to come. A coordinated war on press freedom. Those are not partisan talking points. Those are the words of an independent international organization that tracks journalism conditions in 180 countries and has been doing so for 25 years. What specifically did RSF document as the causes of America's decline? First, the dismantling of public broadcasters. Voice of America, the publicly funded international broadcaster that has served as America's official voice to the world since 1942, was effectively shuttered under the Trump administration. Radio Free Europe, which has broadcast pro-democracy content to authoritarian countries for decades, had its funding cut. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds NPR and PBS, had its funding frozen in a move that multiple federal courts have since ruled unlawful. Second, the weaponization of federal agencies against the press. The FCC, under Trump appointee Brendan Carr, has used broadcast license review threats to pressure media companies into silence. ABC settled a Trump lawsuit for $15 million and donated it to his presidential library. CNN settled for $400 million. Nexstar and Sinclair pulled Jimmy Kimmel off local stations last September after FCC pressure. CBS canceled The Late Show with Stephen Colbert while waiting for FCC merger approval. Third, lawsuits against disfavored outlets. Trump has sued ABC, he sued CNN, he sued CBS, he sued the Des Moines Register, he sued the Pulitzer Prize Board, he sued The Atlantic, which is still fighting his $250 million defamation claim in federal court. The pattern is the same each time. File a lawsuit, apply financial and legal pressure, wait for a settlement or a silence. Fourth, the detention and targeting of journalists. RSF specifically cited the case of Mario Guevara, a Salvadoran journalist who was detained while documenting a protest against immigration raids and later deported. Multiple journalists have been physically removed from press events. White House press credentials have been revoked or restricted. Fifth, rising physical violence against journalists. The U.S. Press Freedom Tracker, a nonpartisan organization that monitors journalist safety, documented more than 170 attacks on journalists in 2025. That is nearly double the previous year. The increase was driven by violence at protests and law enforcement activity. 170 attacks in 1 year in the United States. Now let's put these numbers in historical perspective because the decline is not new, but Trump has accelerated it dramatically. When RSF started the index in 2002, the United States ranked 17th out of 139 countries. 17th in the top 10% of the world. That is where America started. By 2010, it had fallen to 20th. By 2015, it had fallen to 49th. By 2021, the last year before Trump's second term, it had climbed back to 44th under Biden. Then Trump took office for a second term. 1 year later, down to 57th. Now 64th. From 17th to 64th in 25 years. The last 7 of those places in a single year. And RSF specifically called out the comparison to other countries where the same pattern is playing out. They named Donald Trump alongside Javier Milei of Argentina down 11 places and Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, now 143rd after dropping 105 places since 2014. The company America has been placed in by an independent international organization is the company of authoritarian leaders who are systematically dismantling press freedom in their countries. Now, here is what all of this means in practical terms for ordinary Americans. Because press freedom is not an abstract concept. It is not just a number on a list. It is the system by which you, the person watching this video, get to know what your government is doing in your name with your money. When the government can sue a news network into a $400 million settlement, that network will think very carefully before reporting something that angers the president. When the FCC can threaten to revoke a broadcaster's license, that broadcaster will think very carefully before airing a comedian's joke. When a journalist can be detained at a protest, other journalists will think very carefully before covering the next protest. That is called a chilling effect, and it is one of the most documented and well-understood concepts in the study of press freedom. You do not need to silence every journalist. You only need to make some of them afraid. The rest will silence themselves. And now, with gas at $4.39 a gallon, with real incomes falling, with Americans drawing down their savings, with a war entering its 9th week with no end date, the question of what information Americans are receiving about why all of this is happening becomes critically important. Because if the press is afraid to report aggressively, if the government can threaten and sue and intimidate the outlets that cover it, if public media is defunded and dismantled, if journalists are attacked and detained at protests, then the information that reaches ordinary Americans about the decisions being made by their government is filtered, shaped, controlled. And a government that controls the information about its own decisions is a government that cannot be held accountable for those decisions. Trump's approval rating is 34%. Gas is $4.39. The Press Freedom Index has America at 64th and falling. The prediction market says gas might hit 5. Real incomes are down 2 months in a row. 55% of Republicans blame him for gas prices. 64% of Americans say the Iran war is not worth it. And simultaneously, the administration is running what RSF calls a coordinated war on the press, silencing the people whose job it is to report on all of those numbers, suing the outlets that break the stories, defunding the broadcasters that reach the widest audiences, attacking the journalists who show up at protests. These two things are not separate stories. They are the same strategy, the same playbook used by governments that appear much further down that press freedom list. Russia is 172nd. Iran is 177th. North Korea is 179th. Eritrea is 180th. The United States is 64th and falling. The number on that screen, 64, is not a statistic. It is a verdict on what this administration has done to the country that once ranked 17th in the world for press freedom. And every American who is trying to understand why gas costs $4.39, why the war is entering week 9, why their savings are going down, deserves to know that the institutions designed to answer those questions are under systematic attack. Because a free press is not a political convenience for the people in power. It is a constitutional protection for the people who are not. I am Sarah. Fact check everything. Links in the description below. And whatever you do, don't look away.